Hey guys, what's going on? It's Caleb Bakes01 back again for another random horror review. For today's episode, we have the third film within my most reviewed franchise on my channel as of so far, actually. And it is Anaconda 3 Offspring. Now, you may or may not know, I've actually done reviews of the first two films within this franchise, so if you want to know my thoughts on them, they're up on YouTube as well. I'll link them in the description below if I remember. But either way, this is my Anaconda set put out by Via Vision. I definitely recommend picking it up. It's got all 5 films. I've definitely shown off this set more than once, so either way, I've also talked about how religiously growing up I watched the first 2 Anaconda movies, and I still love them to this day. They're probably in my top 10 most watched movies of all time, let alone horror movies. I just fucking love the first 2 Anaconda films. However, the third one I had only seen once, and that was when I was much younger. 4 and 5, I didn't even know there was a 4 and 5 until a handful of years ago, but as I said, the third one, had only seen it once, and that was when I was much younger. But even back then, I remember going, whoa, this is like a major step down from the first 2, so I kinda knew what I was getting myself into when I went and revisited this one for today's review, but I was also a little bit excited to get into it, so I'm excited for today's review. I also want to say, guys, I am a little bit sick at the moment, so please just bear with me if I'm like a little bit out of breath or just struggling to put together words. As I said, just a little bit sick, so just take it easy on me. But either way, we'll get into the plot for this one before we get into my thoughts and ratings. So the plot for Anaconda 3, I'm just going to sort of simplify it because they do try and chuck in some science mumbo jumbo to add stuff to the plot. Which fails in itself, but either way, there is this company doing these scientific tests and what have you on this anaconda, which leads to the snake being modified, and, you know, it's starting to change. It's much bigger, it's got different abilities and different ways of attacking, I guess. It's angrier, more agile, whatever. And of course it escapes, and now it's out in the public, and this group need to come together to find the snake, kill it, because the snake is also pregnant and it is about to lay, so they're running against a little bit of a time schedule here to find the snake and kill it, and I'm just going to leave the plot there. As I said, they do try and add some more scientific mumbo jumbo and whatever to make the plot a bit more exciting, but that's irrelevant, so let's get into my thoughts on this one now. So where I want to start in this one is actually with how the anaconda looks. Now in this film, the snake is like 90% CGI, maybe a little bit of practical, but either way, the snake looks fucking terrible. It doesn't even look like a snake, it looks like a fucking dragon, I don't know, it's fucking like an abomination. And even in the movie, they kind of acknowledge it. They're like, oh, it's an ugly motherfucker, ain't it? And we've done all these tests on it, and I feel like that's just an excuse because they put together a shit anaconda and they couldn't make it look realistic, so they just tried to cover it up and make it part of the story. No, the snake just looks fucking bad. Like, I don't know, you can blame it on whatever you want. The snake is bad, it doesn't look like a snake. As I said, it's just more like dragon-like, it's fucking ugly. The CGI is just laughable at majority of the time. So the snake is not a high point in this one. As I said in the intro, the snake is a little bit modified, so it has like a barb on its tail. I'm not sure if it spits acid or blood. It looks like it spits blood, but then a lot of people are complaining, oh, my eyes burn and whatever. I don't know. It's a little bit clunky with what this snake can do. I wasn't too interested in that. Most of the time whenever it was on screen, I was just laughing at how bad it looked, honestly. Another thing that this film is probably known for is starring David Hasselhoff. And he is probably the most engaging character in this movie. Yeah, his character is a lot of fun, and whenever he's on screen, it's quite pleasant. He's also one of the better actors in this movie, which is not saying much for the acting in this one. I'd say the only other person that, you know, is pretty much on his standard is our main character. I don't know who the actress is, but she does a pretty good job as well. But otherwise, the acting in this one also isn't great, so the snake in the acting, it's pretty low card. Plot-wise, again, is also pretty bland. As I said in the intro, they try and throw in a lot of science, but a lot of the time it's just something that, you know, isn't too engaging or you don't really care about. They actually do try and tie it in with the second Anaconda movie, but that's not really enough to save it. Most of the science stuff you don't really care about. You just want to see a snake fighting people. But even at that point, it's a little bit repetitive because it's a lot of the same thing. You know, they have a tracker on the snake, they follow the tracker, and they find out that the snake's shed its skin, so the tracker's gone, and then they come across the snake, a few people die, and then just repeat over and over again. Like the snake swallows a tracker, they find it in the snake's shit. Like it's the same thing over and over. So the plot also is a little bit bland. But for a movie that isn't the strongest, I will admit it flows pretty well, and it actually doesn't get too clunky and drag. It's so weird. The movie has a 90-minute runtime, and I was like, oh fuck, that might be a bit long for a movie like this. As I said, I remembered it not being too great, and as I said, I watched it when I was like 5. So when you're 5, you can be entertained by anything. But I remembered it being bad, so I was like, a 90-minute runtime, this could be a fucking headache. But I was pleasantly surprised with how smoothly it ran and how much it didn't drag. So I'll give it points for that. But yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot saving this movie. The plot's pretty weak. You know, even with movies like this, you can have a bit of fun. You know, the CGI, B-movie, big animal slugfest. But I don't know. This movie is pretty weak. So we'll get into my rating of this one now. So as I said earlier, not feeling the best, so I wanted to try and keep this review short and sharp, and this is sort of the best movie to keep a review short and sharp because it's very simple, but not greatly executed. I can see people definitely having fun with this one. I do sort of still have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for it. I think it's just because it is part of the Anaconda franchise, and I hold the first two at such a high standard because I love them. But at the end of the day, this one isn't great, and I know a lot of people wouldn't consider the first two Anaconda movies to be great, and that's fair enough, but I think a lot of people take the first two films for granted, especially comparing it to this one. So I'm going to give Anaconda 3 Offspring, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 10. Maybe a little bit generous. It's not the greatest movie, but I don't know. I can see people having fun with this one. I don't know. It's just laughably bad CGI, a plot that you can't really connect with, has some decent kills, but at the end of the day, it's sort of what you would expect from a third film in a giant snake B-movie franchise, so I'll leave it there for this one. So thank you for joining me again for another random horror review, guys. I just want to say thank you for sticking around. I know I was getting a bit out of breath and tongue-tied at points, but as I said, I'm just a little bit sick, but thank you for bearing with me, guys. I'm having fun doing the Anaconda franchise, so let me know if you want to see me get around to doing Anaconda 4. That's a movie I've never seen before, so, you know, my hopes aren't too high looking at just covers and the way that the franchise is going, but either way, let me know if you want to see 4. Let me know any content that you want to see in general, horror related, and maybe that's something I can get around to doing. But thank you for joining me again, guys, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon. Peace.